for sharing your answers. So if you actually look in the definition, I'm sorry, if you look in the dictionary at what college means, you're going to see that it is defined as an institution offering instruction, usually in a professional, vocational, or technical field. So somebody mentioned an institution. So there you go. And then we see the terms professional, vocational, or technical. All of these have to do with leading you to a career path. So you guys were exactly right. That's exactly what college is. I tend to be of the belief that college in its traditional terms, so I have to always tell this to students, because when we say college, our mind automatically tends to go to four-year universities. And I want to make sure we understand that when we say college, we're talking about, or I'm talking about, trade schools. I'm talking about community colleges. I'm also talking about four-year institutions. So college is, and somebody mentioned it, post-secondary education. So anything beyond a high school degree or diploma, rather. So anything beyond a high school diploma, anything that leads to a degree, it can be considered or classified as college. So when somebody says, do you want to go to college? Do not limit your thinking to thinking automatically think college, I have options. I don't have to necessarily go get a four-year degree. I could just go to school for 2 years if that is what the career that I'm interested in requires. I could go to trade school. So you have options. And then I have this question here at the bottom. Why does college matter? So what do you all think? Why does college matter? Does it matter? Do you all think it's important? And I won't, if you want to share, you can. I won't make you share. So it matters because you get a piece of paper that proves your qualifications. So improving your qualifications is helpful, because when it's time to actually apply for jobs, people want to know that you are qualified. People want to know that you have knowledge. So that piece of paper shows that you've taken the time to actually study. Now, it is true that every single class you take in college is not going to be beneficial to the job that you're going to work or the job that you get. So and that's one thing I'll tell you guys, you should know about me. I'm going to be completely honest. It is true that every class you take while in college, it is not going to be beneficial, but you control what classes you take when you go off to college. So you can make sure that the classes you take are beneficial to you, to your development, to your growth. So college matters because you do get a piece of paper that proves your qualifications. It also matters because overall the experience is important and integral to your development as a person. So let's think bigger than just a piece of paper. Let's think bigger than just it leads to a degree, it leads to a piece of it leads to money. Let's think about, like, college is an experience that if you actually get involved in, it's going to help develop you. You get connections. You get to connect with people. Like, had I not went to college, I would not be where I am today. I am from North Carolina, a very small town in North Carolina at that. The people that I now know, the people that I am connected to, this very job that I have, it's all connected to the fact that I went to college, to be truthfully honest. phrase a lot. You probably hear it a lot and you're probably like, yeah, whatever, it's just a piece of paper. But that piece of paper will get your name, will get your foot into doors that you probably never would have imagined. Now, your experience and your skill and your talents and your ability to actually do the work is what's going to keep you in those positions. But actually going to college and capitalizing on the opportunity, like, that's what develops you. That's what's going to keep you there. And one more thing I'll say, and then we'll move on, is that the traditional 4-year, the idea of a 4-year institution, like, that may not be for everybody. That isn't for everybody, but education is. So regardless of what you are thinking about doing after high school, even if you don't really know, to be truthfully honest, you have to be educated. You have to be knowledgeable about your craft, whatever it is that you decide to do. Whether you decide, I want to become a doctor or a lawyer, you may say, I want to go into computer technology. You may say, I want to be an electrician or a nurse. You may say, I want to be a plumber, or maybe you want to be a mechanic. We need each of those professions. They require different levels of education. You may want to be a teacher. We need them all. So don't think that you have to go to a 4-year institution. If what's important now, especially if you're not a senior in high school, or if you're not going to college tomorrow necessarily, well, none of you are, but if you're not a junior or a senior and you're not making the big decision right now, what's important is that you really figure out, what are your passions? What are you interested in? And what is necessary? What pathway in regards to college is necessary for you to get where you want to go? So we're going to start by talking about types of colleges. So let's start first by identifying colleges based on location. So you have rural colleges, suburban colleges, and urban colleges. So rural colleges are pretty much colleges that are located in the countryside. So they're going to be very small institutions. You can think about like Kutztown, if you've ever been to Kutztown University, IUP, like your colleges that are pretty much in the state of Pennsylvania. These are your schools in the middle of nowhere. They're going to be small. The community is going to be close though. And you're not going to have a lot of, the student life is not going to be robust. The opportunity, you're not going to have a whole lot of opportunities because, to be honest, you're in the middle of nowhere. So if you're interested in going to a college that's in the country, you definitely want to go and check it out, as with any school, but you want to make sure that this is what you want because it's in a rural area. The suburban schools, think about Cabrini, think about Swarthmore. So these are your schools that are located outside of the city, just outside on the perimeter of Philadelphia. So suburban campus life means you have access to the school, to the city. It's easy to get into the city. You're right outside of the city. It's just, your school may be small. Villanova is also a suburban school. If you notice, students, Villanova isn't really, really big. And then you have urban schools. Temple is a great example of an urban school. Really big, but at the same time, it's big, but like it also has multiple campuses, which are smaller. So you have the ability to If you want to go to Temple, maybe if you want a small campus, you can choose that. If you want to live on the main campus, you can choose to stay on the main campus, which is bigger. And you get to live amongst the locals. So completely up to you. It's your choice. So when you're thinking about college, you have to consider location. You got to consider, where would you want to place yourself? Do you want to be in the city? Do you want to be on the countryside? Do you want to be right outside of the city? Another thing to consider, some places, some colleges are located in what are called college towns. So the whole town is basically the college. So everybody lives, breathes, and eats the college. So where I went to school at UNC Chapel Hill, North Carolina is Carolina blue. If you go to school there, it's like you're in a bubble until you step out of Chapel Hill. That's when you realize that the world does not revolve around Carolina, because another way to look at colleges, we've already talked about 2-year schools and 4-year schools, but you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to go to a 2-year school or 4-year school? So let's look at the differences between the two. So a 2-year institution, these are your community colleges or your junior colleges. You're going to hear community colleges, you may hear them referred to as a community college, but you don't hear junior college as frequent, but you may hear, if you hear of a school and they say we are a junior college, they're more than likely a 2-year school. At a 2-year college, you earn what is called an associate's degree after you finish your 2 years. So you only go to school for 2 years. After 2 years, you earn an associate's degree. And then after your 2 years, you can either go straight to work. So you can go, if you go to school for 2 years, you can go for early childhood. You can go for a trade. So you can go, if you decide you want to be an electrician, if you say you want to go and study sonography, you may say you want to go for like nursing, but like the basic level of nursing. So not to become a full nurse, like a CNA. So there's a couple of things you can get a 2-year degree in. And if this is what you decide you want to do, like a radiologic technician, those things require only a 2-year degree. So if you're interested in a 2-year school, the Community College of Philadelphia is a great option. So you can go straight into the workforce, meaning after you finish, you should be able to get a job in your field. Or you can decide to transfer and go to a 4-year school to continue your education. So a 2-year option is good for students who maybe after high school, you decide, if you think the option of going straight to a 4-year university is too expensive, you can decide, okay, let me start at a 2-year school and then continue on. Or maybe your grades aren't where they need to be and you want to spend some time getting your GPA up and then transfer. You can do that as well. Or again, maybe you don't need a full 4 years for your career. So you decide to go to a 2-year. Trade schools are often 2-year schools as well. One thing you want to make sure you do is communicate with your advisor and ask about transfer articulation agreements. So this last point here, because every community college, every school is going to have agreements with colleges, 4-year institutions in the area. So the importance of knowing what colleges have agreements or who the community college has agreements with is because you want to know what credits are going to transfer. So if you take English 104 at CCP, which is the community college, then you want to know that English 104 is going to transfer when you go to Temple. So you want to ask about these transfer agreements. And then at the four-year university, these are your university, at the four-year institution, these are typically classified as universities or liberal arts colleges. We're going to talk about those in just a moment. At a four-year college, you can earn a bachelor's degree after, not 2 years, that's a mistake, after 4 years. So you go to school for 4 years and you earn a bachelor's degree. You can, at some schools, earn it earlier than 4 years. And at most schools, they will allow you to take up to 6 years to complete your bachelor's degree. Some schools require that you finish in 4 years. So traditionally, you only need 4 years to finish your bachelor's degree. But if you need a little more time, you can get more time. And then when you finish, you should be able to get a job depending on what you study. So this is very, very important because a lot of students go to college, they get a degree, but they get a degree in something that does not lead to a career. So if you go and you study history, you're going to need to get a master's degree in something that you will be able to get a job in. A history degree does not lead to a career. You're going to need a master's degree or a PhD. So if you're going to go to college, it's worthwhile to study something that leads to a career. This is why people go and they study law or education. Because if you go to school and you study education, you know you can get a job as a teacher. You know, if you study law, you become a lawyer or you go into the justice system. You can become a doctor. You go to medical school, you become a doctor. You go and you study speech language engineering, you become an engineer. So you want to study something that leads to, so if you take nothing else away from what I'm saying, please, like if you study philosophy, you have to really make the connection between what you're studying and what career you plan on entering. That's what happens when people study, like I majored in psychology. If I planned on being a psychologist, I would have had to have gotten a master's degree in psychology. That's the only way that I really would have been able to work in my field and make money and make a living. My plan though, because I knew that psychology as a bachelor's degree was not sustainable, like I knew it. So I studied psychology. I minored in speech and hearing sciences because I was planning on becoming a speech therapist. So you have to do a little more brain work if you're going to major in something like one of the humanities is what they call them. So you earn a bachelor's degree, and after graduation, you usually, you can continue your education to either graduate school, which is when you get your master's degree, or professional school. So if you go to pharmacy school, if you go to medical school, if you go to law school, any of those things are professional school. If you go and get your PhD or your EDD, which is your education doctorate, all of those are graduate or professional schools. Or you can go into the workforce if you study, if you do computer technology or the computer sciences, that is a degree you can get your bachelor's in. You can get your bachelor's in computer sciences and go into the workforce. So if you know you just want to do 4 years, then now is the time to do research and figure out what careers will allow me to go to school for 4 years, and that's it. So it's all about doing the research and being on top of the game. So now public colleges and private colleges. Just really quickly, the main differences between the two. Public colleges are bigger, meaning they have bigger students, bigger campuses. Private colleges, on the contrary, they're smaller. So they're going to have smaller number of students, smaller campuses. They're going to have smaller class sizes. Then they're going to have a fewer number of majors, fewer minors. Public colleges are what you want to study. If you really don't know what you want to study, you want to have options. So maybe a public college might be what you need to choose. Public colleges, when it comes to funding and who pays for these schools, public colleges are public because they're funded by the state. So when you're talking about public colleges, the money comes from taxpayers' dollars. So financial aid may be limited because they have to portion out this money. Private schools, on the other hand, the money comes from private endowments and scholarships. So this money that private schools gets comes from donations. It comes from alumni, people who attended these schools, contributions that are given. So the state does not fund private schools. Private schools have more money to give. So if you know that you need money to go to college, although private schools are typically more expensive than public schools, it will not hurt you to apply to a private school because you just might get more financial aid. So I would put at least 1 or 2 private schools on my list when I'm applying to school because they typically have more money to give because they're not funded by the state. And then public schools, like I mentioned, like Temple, they typically have smaller satellite campuses. So if you think about Temple, Temple has the Ambler campus. They have they have a couple of other campuses, and I'm drawing a blank. If you think about Penn State has Abington, they have Penn State, Maine, and then they have their other campuses as well. And then four-year universities, I mentioned a university versus a liberal arts college. A university is typically going to be bigger than a liberal arts college. A university is going to focus on research. They're going to have typically undergraduate and graduate students. So they're going to have students who are getting professional degrees. So I just talked about students studying pharmacy, or students who are med schools, going to school who are working postgraduate. So students who they're going to have both classes of students. Undergraduate, meaning students who are working towards their bachelor's degree, and graduate students, meaning students who already have their bachelor's degree. These are students now working towards their master's or their doctoral degrees. And then they also, universities, they're going to have, again, a whole lot more majors and degrees to choose from. Liberal arts colleges are more focused, so they may have a specific discipline. So it may be an art school, it may be a culinary school. So if you're interested in going to school for culinary, you may want to specifically focus on liberal arts school, or you may look at specifically in an art school or a dance school. That's going to be called a liberal arts college. That's the umbrella that it falls up under. And they tend to focus on undergraduates. You're not going to find a culinary school for graduate students. It doesn't work like that. And then they are typically focused on, because they're smaller, they're going to focus on building a community and student engagement. Not to say you will not find that at a university, but when you're looking at universities, you have to do your research and find the school that is a best fit for you, because all colleges are not created equal. All colleges are not the same. So if community and student engagement is important to you, meaning you want a school where they make you really feel like you are a family and they really want you to get involved, you have to find that school as you're doing your research. You have to go on their websites, attend their information sessions, ask questions, figure out how do they get students involved in their campus activities and things of that nature. Whereas with the liberal arts college, it might be easier to just see it. And then last type of college I want to mention are for-profit colleges. These are not public or private. These are privately owned. So they're owned by companies. This is like Everest College or Everest University, can't remember. ITT Technical Institute, the classification Corinthian colleges. So these are colleges that are owned by businesses. So basically, the purpose of these colleges is to earn money. A lot of these colleges, they have closed. So a lot of the colleges I just mentioned are no been running. So the reason why we include this slide is because we warn students to be careful if you are considering a for-profit colleges. They are predatory in that they will seek out students. They will promise you that, you come to our school, you're guaranteed to graduate with a job. Like, we're going to make sure you graduate and you don't have to worry about anything when you graduate. So if you decide, like, I can't tell you where to go and what to do, but if you choose this as an option, just make sure you do your research diligently. But there are so many other college options out there between public colleges and private colleges that you can choose from. So just be wise and look up for-profit colleges before you make the final decision to go. Just because sometimes the way these colleges conduct themselves is not in the best manner. So if you've been keeping in touch with the news lately, you know that President Biden, they just signed a relief bill for students who attended these schools. Some of these students may be able to get student loan repayment, because a lot of these colleges conducted themselves in a poor manner. So they may be able to get their loans repaid that they took out for attending these colleges. So if you don't have to attend a for-profit, please do not get caught up in the scam that usually comes along with attending these schools, which are oftentimes after your money. So those were the types of colleges. Now we're going to move into just some things you should consider before you actually get into school. In other words, during the admissions process as you're applying to college. So I've talked about researching colleges. As you're researching them, make sure you create a spreadsheet to help you just keep organized with it. You want to have bullet points or just some kind of document where you can make sure you're keeping up with the academic requirements. Make sure you're keeping up with graduation rate, tuition, like the rate of employment, pretty much the things that matter to you. So academic requirements, absolutely, because you have to know what the college is looking for. But you need to know the tuition, because you got to know, how much is it going to cost for you to attend the school. But you also got to know how much can you afford to pay. So match schools are schools that you, just like it sounds, you match pretty well with what their academic requirements are. So if they say we want a GPA of 3.5 and you have a 3.5, that's a pretty good match. If their SAT requirement is a 1250 and you have a 1275, then you have a really good chance of getting in. Reach school is your dream schools. You're going to apply, but you're reaching to get into the school. Like it's a hope that you get in. And then safety is, you're going to get in. This is your community college option. So we recommend with OnTrack that you apply to 6 to 10 schools, and you should have about, maybe 1 to 2 match schools, maybe 2. No, I'm sorry. It's about 2 reach schools, maybe 2 safety schools, and then 5 to 6 match schools. So you want to apply to schools that the majority of the schools should be schools that you have a good chance of getting into, because you don't want to stress yourself out and you don't want to apply to a million schools. So you just want to be wise in that process. And then just as you're looking at schools, you want to make sure that you apply to schools that support you, and I'll leave that there. So look for resources as you are applying to schools. Make sure that you consider what supports you will need. So you need financial aid. Make sure the school you apply has a really good financial aid office. If you're concerned about finding a career, make sure your school has a good career services. If you have a learning disability, you want to make sure that you know where the learning disabilities office is. And then on this screen are some quick application tips. Again, every school is going to be different, so you should know what each school wants. The schools are going to want similar items, but every school does not want the same thing. So just please read the applications. The Common App could be very useful. If you do not know what it is, Google the Common App. It is a centralized application, which means that it will allow you to apply to more than one school using one application. So file floating around out there, but the Common App is probably the most well-known. So if you're interested in applying to 10 schools, I would make my list of 10 schools and check and see if my schools are on the Common App, because if they are, then it will ease the process tremendously. As you're writing your essays for college, get feedback from your teachers, your mentors. You can even ask me and I'll take a look and help you guys with your essays. And if I have any juniors on the line, as a junior, you can start writing your essays now. Your personal statements, you don't have to wait until your September or October to do it. You can start now. The earlier, the better. Makes for a less overwhelming and stressful senior year. And then definitely ask your guidance counselor about fees and fee waivers. If you're a part of any kind of program for college prep, if you took the SAT or the ACT, if you use the Common App, like, you should be able to get a fee waiver. If you qualify for low income, you should be able to get a fee waiver to apply to college. So before you pay, because it does cost to apply, before you pay, ask your counselor, because I guarantee you they probably can get around you paying. And then lastly, in regards to the admissions process, create a post-secondary team. Understand that you do not have to go through the process alone. You should know who your school counselors are. If you do not, make it a point to meet your school counselor. Have mentors. You should have people who are going to help you through this process, who you can ask for advice. Your teachers, you're going to need letters of recommendation when you go off to college. And your teachers are, I promise you, your teachers are going to have to be at least one of the people to write you a letter. You're going to need 2 or 3. So your teachers, your mentors, your counselors, like, you got to have people in your corner supporting you. So don't be afraid to build these relationships. And then your parents and family members, they're your first form of support. After you graduate from high school, your counselor is not going to be easily available. Your counselor is going to have a whole nother group of students. So they're not going to be able to be there for you like they are able to now, which is why you want to get to know them. So lean on your family members, whether they went to college or not. Include them in the process. And then after you get accepted to school, and these are my last few points, after you get accepted to school, there's a credit requirement. Just like in high school, you have graduation credits. When you get to college, you have credits. So the credit requirement is about 120 credits. So your major and your minor will help you reach that 120 credit requirement. Your major is what you focus on while you're in college. So your major is going to connect to whatever your interest is. And it should be something that you genuinely want to learn about. So like I said, I ended up majoring in psychology. I didn't start out with a major. I actually started out undecided. I didn't know what I wanted to study. So this is another reason why it's important to go to a school where you have options, because some schools you go to, you will have to choose your major immediately. If you think you are interested in nursing, you're going to have to start on your classes early. But some schools, they'll give you until the end of your 2nd semester to declare your major. So your major is what you're going to focus. That's what most of your classes are going to be in. And then your minor is pretty much, it can be whatever you want to take a few classes in. And you don't even have to minor if you don't want to. And you can take 2 majors if you want to. Like, you get freedom when you get to college to study whatever you want to study, but it should be what you're interested in. And if you don't really know, you have time to figure it out. And then once you actually get to college, you just got to make sure you stay on top of things. Your syllabus, when you get those, please utilize them. Use your resources. You don't get the help that you don't ask for. Go to office hours, things like that. Ask for help when you need it and as often as you need it. And make sure you take care of yourself. Sleep, have fun, enjoy the social component of college, because there's going to be so many things that you're going to be able to do, especially once this world returns back to normal. But there's going to be so many things that you can take part of. And college is like, you really do get out of it what you put in. And so it's not all studying all the time. Like, you got to be able to balance the social life with the academics. And then my final thoughts that I would pose to you all is, socially, it's something that you have to adapt to. Like, yes, you're going to be leaving home, but you're going to be gaining an independence. You're going to be making new friends. Like, I left college was me leaving home for the first time. For undergrad. And then I left home and took an even bigger jump when I moved to Philadelphia. So it is a way that you gain your independence. And for the first time, you really are an adult when you go off to college. So it's okay. It's okay. You're going to be fine. And in regards to affordability, because you might be afraid of the cost of college, because college can be expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive though. So if you've heard or if you've seen the prices of college, take the time to research. Educate yourself, contact the schools, and look at schools that are within your price range. Just like if you were going to look at a car, identify how much you can afford to pay for school. Identify how much you want to pay. So you don't have to go look at the $60,000 a year school. You can say, I want to go to a school where it's only going to cost $20,000. And then you can also begin to figure out what does the financial aid process look like. How can you begin to tap into financial aid? How can you receive micro scholarships? If you are in high school and you're not yet a senior, you should be signed up for Raise Me, because Raise Me allows you to get micro scholarships. And then imposter syndrome. Understand that each and every one of you belong in college, if that is where you desire to be. So wherever you want to go, you belong there. So understand the resources that are available to you and tap into those resources. And speaking of resources, these are some additional resources on the screen that are available to you. bigfuture.collegeboard.org, mynextmove.org for a career planning handbook. Big Future, if you want to look at statistics like the average GPA or the SAT scores. And the FIA website is specifically for Philadelphia residents. FIA is your state financial aid. So if you're looking for financial aid, FAFSA or studentaid.gov is going to take you to federal financial aid. FIA is state financial aid, but it will also lead you to state financial aid as well. And if I need to go back to the screen, you guys can let me know. But that is all that I have for you. I hope I have clarified at least some of the questions that you guys may and is here on the screen. So if you guys have questions, I am going to open up for questions. And I do see a comment on the screen, so I'm going to take the time to address that. So if you find a college that's in your price range, sometimes you don't like the college. That is absolutely true. But I guarantee you that that's not the only college that's in your price range. So it's important to thoroughly take time to research. So like there's going to be colleges regardless, like in every range of prices that you look, there's going to be colleges that you don't like. But if your price range, if you say I'm going to look at colleges between $15,000 and $20,000, you're going to find colleges that you don't like, but there's going to be colleges that you like as well. Just like if you were looking at only colleges that cost $60,000 a year, there's going to be a college that you don't like that's $60,000 as well. So you just got to take the time to really research colleges. And then next question regarding the combination of majors and minors. Is there anything you would suggest? Majors and minors, I would say, honestly, you have to do what works best for you, to be truthfully honest. So you can honestly combine majors and minors however you want to. So consider when thinking about how you want to do your major and minor. So this is a conversation that you can have with your advisor, but consider your career path. So there's a couple of things to consider. So I'll use myself as an example. Whenever I went off to college, or at my university rather, I majored in psychology and I minored in speech and hearing sciences. So I wanted to become a speech language pathologist. At my university, there was no major for studying to become a speech language pathologist. So I had to minor in speech and hearing sciences. And then the field of speech language pathology is actually cognitive psychology at its core. So that's what led me to major in psychology. So my major, I actually took psychology as a course. So that's how I came up with, well, let me major in psychology, because I actually could. Because a lot of students actually majored in communications who wanted to be speech language pathologists. So it's completely up to you. If you wanted to become a teacher and let's say you wanted to be a bilingual teacher, you really enjoy Spanish, you can study education and you can minor in Spanish. I could have studied communications and I could have minored in Spanish so that I could become a bilingual speech language pathologist. I also could have studied psychology and I could have minored in Chinese. Like, I could have combined it however I wanted to. Like, your major, again, is your main focus. Your minor can be something personal. It doesn't even have to be related to your career. It's helpful if it is. It's helpful, like, even if you can alternate between the two. And if you don't have to minor in anything. You can double major. So like, I had friends who majored in biology and chemistry because the courses tend to overlap. It's a lot because you have to complete the requirements for both majors now. So that's the other thing to consider. If you're going to major, double major, or if you're going to minor in something and major in something, there are requirements that you have to complete. So I believe a major is about 10 classes and a minor is like 5 classes. And then if you go to a university, I know for sure, if you go to a university, there are requirements that you have to remember. That 120 credit requirement, in addition to that major and that minor, there are what they call general education requirements that you're going to have to complete. So that's something else you have to keep in mind. So you don't have to major. I mean, you don't have to minor. You do have to declare a major. So again, you just choose what's best for you. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're thinking about going into, or if you just want to, like, if you really like art and you said, okay, I'm a major in chemistry, but for peace of mind, I'm gonna minor in art because I really love it, then that's absolutely fine. As long as it fits your schedule and you're able to do it, then that works. Like, I know someone who minored. Are there any other questions? Would it take more than 4 years if you double major? No, it doesn't have to. It depends on when you decide to double major. So if I would say if by your sophomore year you decide, and I really don't want to put a time limit on it, but if by your sophomore year you decide that you want to double major, then you can do it in 4 years. Like, I had friends. So at UNC Chapel Hill, actually, you had to be done with your degree. You had to be done with your degree in 4 years. If you were not finished, you had to get special permission to stay for at least one more semester. And I had classmates who double majored. So if you go in knowing, you may want to double major, just talk with your advisor early on. Let them know, I'm thinking I may want to double major. Because a lot of your classes, like if it's chemistry and biology, a lot of your classes, like your maths, they're probably going to cross anyway. So if it makes sense to double major. Now, if you're like, I want to major in biology and then I want to have a psychology major, it may take longer because those are two different disciplines. So now in that case, it might take a little bit longer. So then you have to ask yourself, am I willing to stay in school a little bit longer than necessary? So if the disciplines are along the same line, so if you did like maybe social work and psychology or sociology and psychology, you probably can push that out in 4 years. Chemistry and biology, you can push that out in 4 years. But if it's like, what philosophy and chemistry, that may be different. Would double major be more stressful? Double majoring, I think, so to say that it's going to be more, it is going to be more work. I think it could, I don't want to say it's going to be more stressful because it is, I think it would depend on the student. If you manage your time, then you will be able to handle it. If you are not good at managing your time and your course load, because you're probably going to have, you might have some semesters where you have to take on more classes. So typically, one course is 12 credit hours. So that's four classes. But there might be a semester where you got to take 5, 6 classes. So it probably, for most students, it probably would be stressful. But if you plan it, so you could plan, like you get full autonomy over what your schedule looks like. So you can literally sit down and say, okay, my first semester in college, I'm going to take it slow. But my second semester, once I get the hang of it, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to prepare mentally for it so that it's not stressful. Do I recommend transferring overseas to study? I think if you plan it well, then transferring wouldn't be a bad idea. So immediately my mind goes to, so I talked about like community college transferring, and like how community colleges have transfer agreements. I immediately think of like Temple. So Temple University has international programs. I think if you were to go to Temple and you plan to transfer overseas, it wouldn't be a bad idea. So even if you didn't go to Temple, I think if that is your intention to transfer overseas, then as soon as you meet with your advisor, even if it's an idea in your head, you need to make it known. Because the thing about transferring is you want to make sure that your credits are going to follow you. Because if you transfer overseas and your credits don't follow you, then you lose them. So you're going to have to start all over. So that's what you want to consider. That's the main thing with anything. So even if you don't transfer overseas, you could just transfer from, let's say you decide to go to Cabrini and you decide you didn't like Cabrini and you wanted to transfer to Kutztown. If your credits don't transfer, you have to start all over. So I don't see anything if you started here in the US and you decided to transfer overseas. I don't see anything, or vice versa. Maybe you decided to go back to your home country and come back to the US. I have transferring as an option. What does that look like for me? Because if you have the conversation, then you know what your options are. Because I don't think it would be a bad idea as long as you know up front. Because if maybe your advisor would say, no, like you can't do it. But if you go to a university where transferring isn't a bad thing, then you could do it. Or where it's an option, then you already know my credits are going to transfer, so I'm good. Or maybe one university will be better equipped for you to transfer than another. Like Temple might be a good option for you to transfer versus Cabrini. They may be better equipped to handle it. What if you settled for a major you wanted to do but change it later on? You can always change your major. The problem with changing your major later in your college career, so the problem comes with changing your major, like at some point, like in your junior year, you can't change your major, or you're going to have to stay in school longer. So that's why, like your first year of college, so what I did, I went into college undecided. My first year, I kind of just took my basic classes. So I took my math, I took my sciences, I took a psychology course. I think I took a sociology course. So I kind of played around and just took some courses to see what I liked. But most schools are going to say by the end of your sophomore year, that's when you have to declare or decide your major. That's when you have to decide. If you don't, I don't even know, there's not a if you don't decide. You got to decide by then. If you decide to change it after, then you run the problem you run the risk of is having to extend your time at the university. And like I said, you typically, they give you up to about 6 years. But remember, when you start extending your time at the school, you're also talking about money, because classes equate to money. So that's why it's important now for you to, if you can, to really do some self-reflection, do some inner work, to really try to identify, what do I like? What do I not like? What subjects am I good at? Like, I don't regret majoring in psychology at all, even though I never had intentions on becoming a psychologist. I never had intentions on being. Now, I wish I would. Part of me wish I would have studied education. I don't even think I took one education course. But now is the time for you to really ask yourself those questions, so that you don't waste your time on a major so you don't have to settle on a major. But yes, the only problem you're really going to run into is time. Time will be your problem if you settle on a major and try to change it too late into the course of college. Benefits of going abroad to study. So I never studied abroad, so I can't speak too much on that. I would guess, though, that it's going to enhance your overall experience of college. Like, you get to immerse yourself in whatever culture that you are, wherever you're going. So if you go to Spain to study, like, you literally are immersing yourself in that culture. Like, that's pretty much like hands-on learning. So, like, I can't really speak on it, but if you like whatever school you're interested in going to, I would say attend an information session and ask that exact same question. Ask them, what are the benefits? What would they say? I think you get smaller classes if you go abroad to study. But yeah, I never studied abroad. In undergrad, I was afraid. I was afraid to study abroad, so I didn't do it. As a graduate student, I wanted to study abroad, but they canceled the program, so I couldn't do it. But I wanted to do it for the experience. That's why I wanted to do it. Are there any other elements to think about when considering colleges? So we've talked about financial aid. Well, we didn't go a lot into financial aid, but I think financial aid is a big piece about considering where you're going. The support factor is really big. Like, really go to a college that supports you, a college that you feel like you belong, a college that you feel like you can get what you need. Like, and I mean it. Like, I went to a primary Black organizations at that primarily white institution. There were actually organizations for every minority group embedded in that institution. And you could definitely see the presence of all of those organizations. So I really felt like I belonged, even though it was a primarily white institution. So I didn't have to go to a historically Black college to feel like I fit in at the university. The financial aid, I went to a college where they had basically scholarship money set aside for low-income students. So I didn't have to pay to go to college. I didn't have the money to go. So those were two big things for me. I'm trying to think if I'm missing any other things, any other elements. If I think of any, I'll come back to it. What if you can't decide what major to be in? Do they choose for you? They don't choose. They don't choose your major. I want to say that it's a very, like, you have to take the basic classes, and that there's a very general name if you do not choose a specific major, that there is a general title, but I can't think of what it is. And it might vary from college to college, but they won't choose for you. But I guarantee you that you'll find something that you're interested in studying, especially as you begin to take classes and further identify like what possible career. Like, I didn't go into college thinking I wanted to become a speech language pathologist. I didn't. Like, I went into college thinking I wanted to be a pharmacist. So I was like a pre-pharmacy major, which isn't even a major, but I was a pre-pharmacy student. And then I was failing classes. That's what happened. I was failing classes. And my advisor was like, there's no way you're getting into pharmacy school. So for a long time, I didn't major in anything. And so she said, start taking classes. She said, what do you like, Shakia? She was like, what don't you like? Like, as a child, was there anything that you like? Like, was there something that you wanted to do? And I took a psychology class and was like, like, I actually like this info. I like this content. So while I didn't like every single thing about psychology, brain work. I like social psychology and how people interacted with each other and how, like, that was real life stuff. Like, I love that. And that eventually led me to, I don't even know how I got the speech language pathology. I think I took like a phonetics course and really got into how we speak and how we learn to talk. And I don't know, it was just so like cognitive psychology and the way our brain is connected, like how our brain controls all of these functions. Like, it was so cool to me. But so I'm still very interested in it. I just don't want to practice it. So you'll find something. And then, do you have to take basic classes in the class? Yes. So really quickly, because I know, I mean, I don't know where we are with time, but I can show you an example, because I was going to show you guys a few minutes ago, but I didn't. So give me just a moment and I'm going to pull something up for you. So I'll show you what I mean when I say, that there are certain classes that you are going to have to take. Come back, see if I can share my screen. Let's see. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen. So, if I wanted to study exercise and sports science, let's say I wanted to do sports administration and I wanted to attend. So I use UNC because I know their system. So if you were a student going to UNC and you were coming into my advising office, this is the sheet that I would give you. So the basic courses that you would have to take, you would have to take English. So your foundations, English 105, up to level 3, you would have to take English 1, English 2, and English 3. When I went to Carolina, there was a placement test that you could take. If you place into the 3rd level, then you wouldn't have to take any foreign languages. But like I placed into, I think I placed out of Spanish 1. So I had to take, I think, 2 and 3 when I got there. Your quantitative reasoning, this is a math class. You have to take math. So these are called your general education requirements. But at Carolina, they call it foundations. Lifetime fitness is a PE course. Your approaches, a physical science. So this is like chemistry or physics or biology, I believe. Yeah, because it's not listed anywhere else. Social and behavior science. So a history class, they tell you what kind of social science here. You got to take Econ 101. So economics 101. Then you got to take another one. So they give you this big the curriculum book where you can see all the classes that they offer and all the descriptions, so you can read through what offerings they have. Your humanities, so you got to pick, and this is before you graduate. So this is not in one semester, but you got to fill this up before you graduate. Humanities. So this is what I mean by you can plan your semesters on what you do. So you have to take a visual and performing arts class. You got to take a literary arts, and you got to take a philosophy class. Connections. And then like this here from at least 2 departments means you just got to take 2, I believe. That's what that means. I can't remember correctly. And then connections, you got to take. So all of these help you reach that 120 requirement. Because if you notice, there's that 120 number right there. And this is for the Bachelor of Arts in Sports Administration. And then the major and minor requirements are listed here. So for the major in exercise and sports science, it's 10 courses, 30 hours. So these are the exact courses the student would have to take in order to get the major. And you notice they had to take Econ 101. This is why. Because they have to take this class. So I'm assuming it's exercise and sports science 324. The prereq is Econ 101. So it lays it all out for you. I remember I said every college isn't created equal. Every college doesn't give you sheets like this. They may give you something like every semester. I had this sheet to help me plan what classes I needed, when I was going to take them. And see, this is optional because you don't need a minor necessarily, but I could write up my electives. And then see, this helped me figure out what did I need after my term. Like how many more classes did I need to take? How many more classes? How many more hours did I need? All of those things. So this is what I meant by you can plan. Your general education requirements are usually, this is what you take within like your first 2 years of college. You don't just jump into your major. You take these courses first. Unless you are in a field where you have a lot of things, like you got a lot of classes to take. Like nursing is one of those fields where if you decide you're going into nursing by your sophomore year, you're going to be taking, like you're probably going to have to apply to nursing school in your sophomore year. So I'm going to come back. Does that answer your question? Oh, let me go back. I'm sorry. The number at the end of the subject. So this is the level. So typically, the higher you go, the more advanced the subject is. So like English 101 would be like the first level of, or maybe I'm not even gonna say the first level. That's like the basic level English. In some schools, you could go lower, which would mean the lower level. So the lower it goes, I guess you would say the easier. Some places would say remedial. So the subject decreases in difficulty. The higher it goes, it increases in difficulty. So like math. So math 101 might be algebra. Math 105 might be, or math 101 might be pre-algebra. Math 105 might be algebra. Math 200, I don't know why I went from 105 to 200, but math 200 might be calculus. So it's different levels, but as the numbers increase, the difficulty of the class typically decreases. And usually there's prerequisites. So if you notice, so Econ 101, for some classes, you're going to have prerequisites. So a prereq is what was it? EXSS, so exercise, sports, science, that's the code. For exercise, sports, science 324, in order to take this class, your prereq is Econ 101, which is why they required you to take it here. And so for some classes, when you get to college, they're going to say, you have to take English 105 before you can take English 110. So I hope that made sense. So every number pertains to a different level essentially. So again, as the numbers go up, the levels go. So it's just like in high school. So each grade level, so you got English 1, English 2, English 3, English 4. In college, English 1 would be like English 101. English 2, it might be 102. Another school might have a different number for it. It depends on the college. So even that differs depending on where you go. But again, the class should increase in difficulty as the numbers increase, and it should decrease in difficulty as the numbers decrease. Because you could have an English 101, but you could also have like an English 87, which means that it's a very easy, it's a basic level. So if you go to a community college, you're going to have to take a placement test to see what level you place in. So if you place in, if they say, oh, you placed in like in a remedial level English, that means you placed in like a high school level English. That's what they're telling you. That's the kind of English you placed in. If you placed on a college level, that means you placed out of high school. So that means you did really good in high school English. Are there any more questions? Any more final questions? All righty. If there are no more questions, thank you all. You all have been wonderful. And I will turn.
Thank you so much, Kia, for providing the valuable information to our Chinatown community. Yeah, thank you. And I will in touch with you later. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So thank you, everyone. I think we're done for today, but I think you should be able to stay on if you wanted to, if you had homework and stuff.